Coming up on the inaugural episode of Mic'd Up Sports, she is the California Golden Bears' all-time record holder in starts and three-point field goals. For the last 4 years, she has helped Como Park girls basketball drop buckets. She is Alexis Gray-Lawson, and this is Mic'd Up Sports. Hello everyone, I'm Mike Peden, and this is the inaugural episode of Mic'd Up Sports. What is Mic'd Up Sports? It's a play on my name, but it's also a platform for sports personalities in the Twin Cities area to offer their stories and experiences on how sports has influenced them. Hopefully, we can expand beyond the Twin Cities area, but our first guest is a well-traveled one, Alexis Gray-Lawson. You may remember her from her time at California or the WNBA's Phoenix Mercury. Alexis, thank you for being the first test subject in this new venture of ours.
Thank you for having me.
So your background is filled with basketball, and when I think of your story, I kind of think of the scene from Black Panther where Killmonger's character, played by Michael B. Jordan, said, "A kid from Oakland believing in fairy tales," because over the last several years, I guess you've lived a fairy tale, getting a chance to earn a scholarship, play professionally, and now mentor the next generation of basketball athletes.
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible. Something I definitely never thought would happen for me, but I'm glad that it did, and hopefully it continues to inspire generations to come.
And speaking of, what was your inspiration as you were growing up as a kid in Oakland, trying to make something for yourself?
I had an incredible mom. It's weird because usually you get this weird mix. Oakland's obviously known for Gary Payton and Jason Kidd and those type of guys, and you don't hear about any women. And that's exactly how it was when I was growing up. And a lot of those guys weren't in my neighborhoods. I didn't see them. The only people that you saw were people that you saw every single day on the streets or doing was something they had no business doing. So for me, I had an incredible mom who continued to push me every single day. At times, how parents can be, they may get on your nerves, right? But my mom was pretty incredible. She, was a single parent. My mom got remarried to my stepdad, and my mom did everything for me. She drove me to basketball games. While other kids flew everywhere. My mom worked overnights, and then overnight she would then get up in the morning at 7 a.m., come pick me up, take me to school every single day, help me with my homework, and then only sleep 2 hours in a day, or if I had a basketball tournament that was I remember it being in like Nevada or something like that. All my teammates had left the night before, and my mom had to work, and she drove me straight there, didn't miss 1 minute of my game, and slept in between the two games. So when you have someone like that, it's kind of hard not to be successful. And so those are things that I remember, and hopefully I can continue to live out her legacy.
I presume your mother is doing a better job at catching up on sleep now?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I think that she's kind of got used to the no sleep thing. But I have two younger sisters, one that just graduated from UC Merced, who's going off to Howard, and then my sister Kenya is living at home too. So I think that mix, they keep her busy still. They're going to Hamilton this weekend, which I'm a little bummed. But yeah, I mean, she's still staying busy, that's for sure.
So, do you remember the first moment that attracted you to the sport of basketball?
Yeah. I was about 7 years old. I have like tons of cousins. It's kind of ridiculous. I probably have about 30 cousins, and they're all boys. And we're all around the same age. I had a cousin named Deontay and a cousin named John. John was bigger than everyone else. He was probably like 6 foot at 10 years old. So he's always been super large.
And you're wondering, where did my height go?
I actually am the shortest out of all of us, which is, I guess I'm not that small, but definitely not tall. And they were outside and I wanted to play and they wouldn't let me play. And I was like super hurt. I was like, what do you mean you want me to play? And they're like, girls don't play basketball.
Oh,
yep.
And I bet that lit a fire.
Yep. My cousin John was kind of always the one that was super supportive, but my cousin Deontay was always on me, like never let me just get a moment. And I remember running in the house and telling my stepdad, and he said, it's all right, I'll go outside and play with you. And so my stepdad came outside, and he ended up being on my team. We lost bad because I was terrible, but I appreciated that moment.
How long did it take for you to beat your cousins in those pickup games?
Ooh, I think I was in the 5th grade. It was like a weird transition for me because so when I was a 4th grader, I kind of got into the sport, and I started playing with boys. And I had this guy who I was literally on the playground one day, literally just playing dodgeball with the boys, and I was hitting all of them. By the way, I was winning. So we were playing dodgeball, and the coach comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, like, do you want to play basketball?" And I'm like, "I'm not that good." And he's like, "No, just come play." Coach Reynolds. And I said, okay. So I went out and played. I didn't play not 1 minute until the championship game. It was 10 seconds on the clock. He put me in because someone fouled out. Well, everyone fouled out except for me because obviously I didn't play. And they give me the ball. I'm like dribbling up the court. I made the layup and I made it in the wrong basket. And I lose the championship game, right?
So you pulled a swing cash before she pulled a swing cash.
Yeah. And after the game, all the boys made fun of me. And so that summer, I don't think I've ever played as much as I did. My dad bought me a basketball court, and I was just out there from probably like 7 in the morning to like 9 o'clock at night every single day. And that was just my time to really come into my own. And then literally it was like an awakening. 5th grade, I just kind of like took over, and my cousins was like, how the heck did she get this kid over a year? And it really was. I just kind of just put in work and really focused on what I needed to.
And I'll just explain to the audience, Swing Cash once made a basket on the wrong end. It was a UConn-UCLA game. It's up on YouTube, her most mortifying moments ever. Thankfully, you had that before you went pro. Otherwise, you might have made a run for her in the blooper reel. But you said you played with boys as a kid, going up through school. What was it like going up against an all-boys squad, and how do you think that helped you evolve as a player at such a young age?
It made me tough. It was, boys are hard to play with because you get that dynamic, right? You get some of the boys that like have a crush on you, and then you have that other dynamic where.
Did that happen?
Yeah.
Up to you?
Oh yeah, like it was like a weird dynamic where at that time I really was just trying to find out who I was gonna be, and so I had like this weird mix where at that time you're starting to like boys, and it was weird because I'm on a team with a whole bunch of them. So, but when you're on the team with all of them, they're like your best friends as well. And so you know all the little secrets, and you're like, there's no way I would date any of you, right? Like you have that moment. But it was a pretty amazing thing to be around guys who kind of, pushed you to get better. Some of those same guys are some of my closest friends now. So, I think that they pushed me. I had really tough coaches. This guy by the name of Howard Keys, he never calls me by my name, never calls me Alexis, he always calls me girl. And I would miss a layup, he would make me do 40 push-ups every single time. So it was a lot of push-ups, a lot of dragging my body up and down the floor. But it made me tough. It made me a lot stronger than a lot of girls. And it made me not want to play with girls because at that particular time, it was kind of like, well, I'm stronger than them, I'm faster than them right now. What can, why play girls basketball? And I think like that next year is when I started playing with girls who were just like me, who were just as strong, just as talented. And it was just a weird mix. It was a different mix.
And speaking of that, what do you remember playing your first game on an all-girls team after playing, a few years of pickup with, an all-boys team?
It was fun. It was fun. I mean, you got to. Well, I mean, my team was kind of. I mean, we had all got offered D1 scholarships by the 7th grade. So I mean, we were a pretty stacked team from a very small area, which people couldn't believe, like where all these kids are being, where are they being trained? What are they eating? What are they doing? And I remember that the first game was at a recreation center called EOYDC. And we were playing in this tournament, and Cal came to the game. And that was like my first experience really with women's basketball in general. I was just like, our coach is like, well, Cal's here. And I'm like, what the heck is Cal? And they're like, what? Like, it's down the street. Like, how do you know? I'm like, I don't know what Cal is. Like, I'm just trying to survive. I'm trying to stay out here, trying to grind and figure out who I'm going to be, So it was different. That first game was pretty incredible. Got to play with some amazing kids, and yeah.
Who was the first school to offer you a scholarship? Was it California?
Yep.
It was California.
Yep.
The school you ended up playing for. What did that mean to you to get an offer at such a young age at one of the Power 5 schools?
I didn't understand it at the time. I think it was just kind of like, it's funny because you see these kids now and they get offers, and the first thing they do is they post it on social media. Like,
blessed to receive an offer.
To receive an offer
which
from such and such.
I'm on the fence about because it's an offer, but
Me
it's
as
not
well.
a
Me as
commitment.
well. Right. And it's cool that like, for me, it was kind of like this thing like, oh, okay, I got an offer. That's great. Like, but how do I get more? Like, how do I figure out, am I really going to be that basketball player that they think that I'm going to be, or am I just going to be average? So those are things that I was going through as a 7th, 8th grader, more so than, oh my God, Cal just offered me. I had no idea even what that meant. You don't know if that's an actual commitment to the school. You don't know if you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So I think for all of us, we were just kind of like, oh, that's cool, but let's go play basketball now, right? And so for me, I really didn't know what that meant.
How many schools gave you an offer to play for their team?
Probably over 200.
Over 200?
Yeah.
So you had your choice of Division I schools.
Yep.
And we'll talk more about that in a few minutes, but what led you to commit to Cal?
A couple things. My mom, obviously. My mom was like, you're going to Cal, okay? She didn't think that I could handle being away from California, being away from my family, which she's probably absolutely right. So that was the first piece of that. The second piece, I mean, from an educational standpoint, I was a scholar in school, and so I knew that it was going to really push me to be really a great academic mind. And all the great academic minds go there, or Stanford, right? And so that for me, I was like, that's where I need to go. And it didn't help that I had 4 other teammates who committed at the same time that I did. And we kind of became the Fab Five of the Bay Area. So it was pretty incredible to do that as well.
And in my research, I thought this was amusing. You are still 3rd all-time in California history with 1,982 points, and you mentioned, Cal and Stanford, the 2 schools a lot of folks go to. Well, 1982 is also the year of the infamous Stanford-Cal football game. Yep. I'm sure you are well-versed in that, being a California graduate. I just think that has to be surreal that your final scoring total at California matches the year of maybe the most infamous moment in athletic history for those 2 schools.
I didn't know that, but that's some good research. I did not know that. But,
in your case, I don't think any bands went out on the court compared to that football game.
No, but it's funny because you learn about that like your freshman year in orientation, your first day. And I was like, what do you mean they all ran on the floor? And they're like, yeah, everybody ran on the field. And I'm like, oh my God, like that probably was super embarrassing.
At least in your case, you went to the school that won.
I did.
So
I did.
You get to talk smack about it.
That's
the
true.
folks from Stanford, not so much.
That's true.
But before you went to California, you went to Oakland Tech for high school and won 2 state titles, if I'm correct, and had your number retired, your jersey retired. So what did that mean for you? Because that doesn't happen often in high school. I think in Minnesota, I only know of 2 athletes, Taylor Hill and Andrea Adams, who have had their numbers retired. So to have your number retired, I mean, that's a pretty big accomplishment.
I mean, for me, you know, people always talk about like your greatest accomplishments, you know, and for me, my city is everything. Oakland is everything to me. A big piece of who I am, the swagger that I have, the way that I carry myself is really all about Oakland. Oakland has had some amazing athletes, especially on the women's side, that I think weren't recognized growing up. One of them happened to be my coach Val. She went to Fremont, broke a whole bunch of records. Fremont won state that year. And, you know, I just wanted to bring light to where I was from. That's really all I really wanted to do. And obviously from that, so many other great players have come after me. But yeah, I mean, I was completely honored. I didn't know it was going to happen, honestly. I didn't even think about it actually happening until forever, right?
I'm sure that was your first goal. Like, I'm going to get my number retired when I graduate.
I didn't even think about it. And it happened so quick. It happened probably like maybe a year or two after I graduated high school. And so it was kind of like, whoa, like they actually really like me. I actually really did something there, right? And yeah, I mean, because it just doesn't happen. So I'm really, really honored to be able to represent, and hopefully, you know, that stays up there.
Well, they retired it, so I don't think they can unretire it.
You never know.
Unless...
I've heard stories. I've heard stories of people unretiring jerseys.
Well, maybe if there's another player who is crafty as you were. But I think she would have to approach you for permission, I would think.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Of course, winning state titles is fun, but what did you enjoy most about the high school experience and getting to, you know, showcase yourself, you know, in a city where, you know, there aren't always positive stories, if you know what I mean? My
teammates were fantastic. You know, I talked to my team about, you know, being a good teammate and what that really means. I don't think that I could have been a good teammate. I don't think that I could have accomplished anything that I accomplished without those guys. You know, my teammates were like my best friends. We went everywhere together. Every weekend we spent with each other. We had like the best sleepovers ever. And so, you know, when you see those guys, there's just nothing but love and respect for them. And it's always like the person that scores the most points, right, that stands out. And I was happen to be that person, but it was all the other people that allowed me to be me, you know, people like, you know, Denasia and Marisha and Jamie and Yaya, like those guys pushed me in practice. They helped me to continue to grow my game, you know, Genesis, Leah. So, you know, I appreciate being able to be in that space with them.
And that's a sentiment I get now when I cover high school games because, you know, research is limited. You don't have SIDs. Not every coach will post, you know, full stat lines either, so you've got to do some diggings. And as you said, that usually means the person who scores the most points is going to get the most attention. But as you can attest to, it was that collective that allowed you to win those state titles and turn Oakland Tech into kind of a big deal when you were a prep athlete.
Yeah, I mean, I think that me and Devin, they get a lot of credit, you know, obviously for what happened at Oakland Tech, right? But people don't remember that it was Seja was the one who actually, me and Devin, they both fouled out at state. So we were out of the game with like 2 or 3 minutes left in the game, and it was Seja who took over. It was freshman who took over the game and ended up winning state for us. So it's all those little pieces that people tend to forget, but then afterwards, you know, I want to say Devin, they got the first MVP and I got the second one. You know, it's like we get MVP, but we really weren't the MVPs of the game, you know? So it's just those bits and pieces that you remember, but then you grow to really appreciate your teammates even more.
Where does California have their state tournaments?
We usually have it at the Arco in Sacramento.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, now will be Sleep Train or whatever, the new arena.
Yep.
Golden One, that's what it is, because Sleep Train, Arco, but... So you got to play in the court of the Kings and the Monarchs, who are no longer with us. Rest in peace, Sacramento. And then you got to play in the McDonald's All-American game. So do you remember how you were chosen for that and the emotions of getting to participate in that showcase?
It was weird because the year before, it was like my junior season. I probably had about like, maybe 20 schools looking at me. All of them were on the West Coast, and they were, mid-majors. Some of them, with Pac-12 or Pac-10 at that time. And nobody really knew who I was. And then I played for Jerry Gatewood, right? And he has his basically all-star roster with Courtney Paris and Ashley Paris and Devonay and Erica Arion and all these players who were, top 5 players. And so he asked me to come play. And I was like, okay. My mom allowed me to. And the next thing you know, I become like this overnight sensation, or what people thought I was an overnight sensation, right? And next thing I know is everyone wants to recruit me. And for me, it was a little eye-opening. Like, whoa, like this was a lot at one time. And then the next thing I know is now I'm ranked, in the top, 35 at the end of the summer. And I'm like, oh, like that's pretty cool, 35 out of 35 million kids, I'm in that 35, So I thought that was cool. I didn't even think about the McDonald's All-American game at all. I actually kind of just was like, whatever. And we were getting ready for our championship game. And my coach comes on the bus. He's like, hey, congratulations. I'm like, for what? What happened? He's like, you're McDonald's All-American. So all my teammates are super excited, and I'm really taking it in, and I'm like, what the heck is a McDonald's All-American? Like, we going to McDonald's? Like, what's going on? So I'm like lost. I have no idea or no clue. And at that time, you would assume that everybody knew what a McDonald's All-American, everybody knew what a Parade All-American was at that time. And me and my teammates really just had no clue. And I remember Devonay got the same thing. She was a McDonald's All-American. She ended up being like Adidas and everything else in between, right? And so her and I looked at each other like, congratulations. And then we went out and played our game, right? And then I still didn't take it in until we actually went to the game. And I got to play with, some of the world's best, right? Tina Charles and Kia and, all these guys. And then we got to hang out with some of the guys. And at that time, it was like Danny Green and Lou Williams and these guys, right? Who, now are like NBA stars. And at that time, they were just kids like us that are trying to figure it out. So we had fun. I mean, we got to go to the Ronald McDonald House, which was my favorite part. Just the giving back part and spending time with other people that don't necessarily get a lot of shine or love like they need to. But yeah, it was an amazing experience.
I take it you're highly familiar with what the McDonald's All-American game is now.
Yeah. Very, very much aware.
You got a crash course, I guess, because you got to play in it. But that is quite a hilarious story.
Yeah, I really didn't. I think that people forget that some kids really are just kids, right? Like, and I was really one
thinking about headlines or highlight reels or likes on Instagram.
Today's society is so much different than when I was growing up.
Right, we didn't have social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
We had, in order to find out something, I had to actually call someone. I remember my mom got like the biggest bill.
Smartphones weren't even a thing yet.
Remember the sidekicks? So I had a sidekick. I remember trying to like text on my phone one particular time because like everybody was getting to the texting thing, and I remember texting, and it was like $1 a text. Yes. And I remember my mom having to pay like this like crazy big bill. It was like $300 on just text messaging, and she was like, "Who are you texting? What is text messaging?" And I was like,
"Yeah." And now that people would say that's crazy talk.
Right. Exactly.
But that is interesting to think about. I mean, have you thought about what might have changed if you had grown up in this era of social media?
I'm glad I didn't. These kids record everything. I mean, they record them eating dinner. They record themselves in the mirror. I'm still trying to figure out Snapchat. It's different. It's definitely different. I couldn't even imagine living in a society where social media is a big thing.
I've only picked up on Instagram a few months ago, so I can relate. Yeah. You're just trying to keep up, but it's like...
I didn't even have a MySpace or a Facebook until college. Like some of these kids have
Facebook
that.
Facebook was college only.
Yeah.
Before it turned into this conglomerate.
Exactly. So it's funny how like the times really, really have changed. Like no one had apps on their phones, right? Like There was just none of that going on. But at the same time, I think it allowed kids to be kids, right? It allowed us to go outside and want to go play on the basketball courts, right? Like now you go across a park and you barely see kids ever, right? And when I was growing up, everyone was outside. It was like the block was like so packed, like you couldn't get on a basketball court. Like you had to get there so early if you wanted to even get a shoot in, you know, right? So it's like those simple things that we take for granted, but like I miss those days because I think it would make kids grind even more, you know, even harder.
And I think the structure has changed too, because AAU is such a big aspect for the current crop of prep athletes, and it's what you got to do if you want to get noticed. Absolutely. I mean, it has its pros and cons, but I think, like you said, it gives them a showcase, but it also takes away some of those recreational opportunities. I go back to Michael Jordan because I'm of that era when it came to basketball, and you probably know about the contract where he had a clause that allowed him to play basketball anytime, anywhere, so he could do that. And it sounds like you and I were from that era where you'd be happy you'd be happy to play a pickup game.
Well, it's weird because you get kids now. It's funny. I had I'm not going to say the player, but I have a couple of players on my team, right? And they won't wear their basketball shoes outside, right? And like it's like a sanctuary, right? So like they go inside, they have like their little slip-ons, right? And they go in, they put on their shoes, and before they go outside, they take their basketball shoes off, right? And then they have like 3 or 4 pairs during the year, right? My mom gave me 1 pair for probably a year or 2, depending on how warm my shoes were, because it really wasn't that important, right? And you wore your basketball shoes outside. It wasn't a big deal. It didn't scratch up your floors. It didn't, all these crazy things that people say, oh man, it'll scratch up the floor. It'll mess up the grip on your shoes. It's like, dude, like people have been doing this since the beginning of time. People have been wearing Chucks. People wear, I remember people wearing the Jordan 1s. Like, this isn't like something brand new. You guys aren't reinventing the wheel. It just is what it is.
It's almost like these players look at shoes like other folks look at classic cars. That conventional wisdom is, we don't want to get it scratched. Well, why do you own it then?
Exactly.
It's going to get used.
Exactly.
And having covered basketball for 13 years, I can say those basketball shoes don't scuff up the court at least.
No.
Or any other part of locker rooms or professional arenas. So speaking of arenas, what was it like playing for California when you made the transition from high school to college, and how did that shape you? Because I think you came in, and then a few years after you had Laisha Clarendon, Brittany Boyd, Rashonda Gray, but you got to play for a solid Pac-10 team.
Yeah. So when I first came in, Cal was like at the very bottom, and everybody was like, why the heck did you choose them?
What are you doing there?
Yeah, like why Cal? Like they're not good. I had the opportunity to go to Stanford, and I love Tara. I still love Tara. Like Tara's like one of my favorite coaches to just watch, right? Like she's pretty incredible, right? And then there's Joanne Boyle, right? Who has like this infectious love for her players, right? And so for me, anybody that knows me, I'm all about relationships. When I first came in, I thought it was gonna be easy because I'm like, we're the new kids on the block. There's 5 of us. All 5 of us are going to start. That's what it is. And I don't care how any of my teammates feel about it. That's kind of how we came in, right? We came in like the kids that we were taking over, and, you guys don't know anything, even though you've been here a lot longer. You've had your college experience, and we have no idea what we're stepping into, right?
And I'm laughing because I think I know where this story's going.
It's true. And then what happens is like first 6 a.m. workout, right? And we're killing it, we're doing really well on all the basketball stuff, and then it comes to the running, right? And anybody knows me, I hate running. Like it's, for us to be a speed team at Como, I like absolutely hate running. And so we're like running, and my teammate is like making jokes at me, like, man, you slow. Like you slow. Like how you supposed to gonna start over me, but you can't even beat me, right? So I was like, okay. Now, anybody that knows me, I'm super competitive. I can have like one foot and one arm, and I'm still going to try to beat you. That's just how I am.
You're like that Black Knight from Monty Python.
Yeah.
It's just a flesh wound.
Yeah. So I mean, like, literally, I never lost another sprint, right? And that's just kind of how I felt. I took to heart what my teammate was saying, not knowing that she was just doing to help me to get better, right? And so we're getting ready for season, and we're knuckleheads. You know, you're kids who just think that we know everything and no one else can tell us anything. And I remember having a conversation with Coach Boyle, and, you know, her really just breaking it down for me. And, you know, ever since that day, we've been tight, you know. And so when you talk about relationships and the grind, you know, it would have been no other person that I would rather have gone to war with. You know, I had like the super staff, honestly. You know, I've had some of the most, when you think about like the line of coaches that I've probably had the best of the best types of coaches for what I needed at that moment, right? So I've had Joanne, I've had Lindsay, I've had Charmin, I've had Kevin Morrison. I mean, I've had a whole bunch of different coaches, right? And they all bring something different to the table. You know, Joanne is more of like, you know, the person that's going to teach me and that's going to give me the focus, right? The focus that I need to propel myself and tell me like, no, you can do it. You're just being lazy, right? That coach. Lindsay is the person that's going to give you so much love. It's like infectious. Like, she walks in a room and you just want to hug her and you don't even know her, right? But she's also going to give you the X and O's of everything, the whys, right? The way that you can really think the game. You know, Charmin is the big time thinker, but she's going to give you the tough love. You know, she's not going to let anything, like, you're not going to get by just to get by because you're talented enough. You're going to push yourself to the limit, right? And then Kevin has been my coach forever. He was my AU coach, he was my high school coach, and he was my college coach. So he knows. He knows that what I'm capable of, and he knows where I could go, right? So I had a great dynamic when it came to that, and it was like a super staff, you know? And then obviously we had a lot of success. And then next thing you know, that next generation comes with, you know, Leja and all those guys. They come in as freshmen and I'm a senior, and, you know, hopefully my goal was to try to teach them the way, and, you know, they got to the Final Four.
Did they come in as the knuckleheads that knew everything?
Yes. Yep.
and so I guess
not so much Leja.
Was it full circle? Oh, Leja, no, that makes sense.
Not so much Leja. Leja was Leja was really, really quiet. Like, she was very laid back, and
yeah, she once told me she was always kind of the quiet, nerdy kid, and now, of course, she's a big.
She kind of came out into her
her
own. Really, that's really kind of what happened. It was no way that she was. So, like, everybody always acts like her personality now and her coming out into her own is very, very different. Because Leja wasn't like that. She was very quiet and reserved, and, you know, kind of to herself.
Not so much now, but for you, it was like payback. Like, all right, now I get to show you the ropes.
Yeah.
Still, it's pretty impressive for a one-time knucklehead to hold the school record for most career starts and three-point field goals. You had 211, if my research is correct.
It just got broken this year.
It did. Okay, so
by an Oakland kid.
Okay, so now you're second. But how did you progress into such a sharp shooter?
I tore my ACL. That's really what happened.
So, let this be a lesson, kids. Tear your ACL and you'll knock down threes all day.
That's really what it was. You know, in high school, I was always stronger and I was always faster than most people. So I was able to kind of get to the basket at ease, and that was kind of my game. I had, like, you know, a mid-range game and I can get to the basket. And so having that combination, I really didn't have to do anything else. And so when I came back, my thought was like, I'm going to be a lot slower, you know, and so how do I still become Alexis of who I'm supposed to be, being a little bit slower. Now, granted, it came back, but I wasn't sure it was going to come back because I had seen other people tear their ACLs and never come back, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and so for me, I was scared. So it scared me into a three-point shot, and I just shot like crazy, and it worked out to be that way. But That was really never the intent to be a 3-point sharpshooter, which is probably crazy, but I didn't have a jump shot like that in high school. I really didn't need one. And so, I was all about the dirty work. So, it kind of just worked out that way.
And the irony, I guess, is continued because at Como Park, you got to work with Michaela Van Nett. Mm-hmm. I know Shania Nichols, your younger sister, has been working on that 3-point shot. So, your past is never going to leave you.
No.
You've got a speedy team. Yeah. You've got sharpshooters. So all the biggest nightmares.
Yeah. Well, you would assume that for most people, and this is why I always think it's important for, I'm never against people who haven't played this game and that coach. I will never be against them because I think that there's some amazing brains out there. But I think most people that has played at some point, they usually are a reflection of your team. Like, at least that's how it's kind of been for me. I mean, I've seen Tanisha play, right? And then she's a reflection of exactly...
Are you for Tanisha Scott?
Yeah.
Okay, De La Salle.
So when you look at her team, it's exactly like their swagger, their attitude, how they present themselves is a replica of who she is. And I think that's the same thing with Como Park. Like, we're always going to be the underdogs. I'm always the black horse. No one ever thinks that, I kind of like, it's like the weird thing. Like, I'm the kid that nobody really knows about. And then all of a sudden it's like overnight success, or people think it's like overnight success. Right. And they don't understand that it's the time that I put into the game. It's the film that I watch. It's the this, it's the that. So that's kind of how Como Park is. Like, no one truly believes that we can be that top team, that Hopkins, that De La Salle, that this, that, right? But we're coming.
If you'd like to support TSB Television sports programming, check us out at patreon.com/TSB Television or paypal.me/TSB Television. Stay tuned for part 2 of our conversation with Alexis Gray-Lawson. And thank you for watching Mic'd Up Sports.